Well, okay then. Let's see, where are we? Check, 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 check. Okay. All right. So we got that. Welcome, John, Tommy, Michael, whoever else is there. Sound is good, thank you. Tommy came to pick up chicks. Oh, my friend, our days are done. We ain't picking up no chicks. Number one, we're not that good looking anymore. And number two, even if they were talking about little chickadees, we can't bend over that far. Hey, oh, hey, Ron, yes. I need to get you those specs. I do. I do. Actually, I've been looking around the studio to see what kind of gear I have on hand, what kind of components I have on hand that would get you out the door for a lower price. So I'll put some stuff together and get it to you. My apologies. I know you're ready to move along. Ready to move along. Let's see, what do we got here? We need to go here and catch up there. There we go. There we go. Yes, John, the PTZ cameras, vMix kind of discontinued, excuse me, PTZ Optics kind of discontinued the Gen 2 cameras and then came out with the 4K cameras and then kind of said, well, we're going to come out with the Gen 2s again. I don't know if they're calling them Gen 3s, but they're calling them the Move SE Standard Edition SE. So that's the same cameras that you have. So yes, we can get the same kind that you have. Just tell me color and zoom capability, and I will get you a quote on those. And they are readily available. It's not like, 3 years ago when you couldn't get anything. Yeah. And Ron, who is just up the road from me, did a terrific multi-day series. I don't know if it was last week, Ron, or the week before. And all of the high schools in our area, so this is South Alabama, had their football team media days where the coach and some of the players would come on and talk about the school and one school after another. And Ron rebroadcast the whole thing. I mean, broadcast it all live. Let me see if I can find that. And I will get it to you. So let's see. That's going to be there we go. Baldwin County Media Day. And this is where you will go. And we'll put it in the chat. Did that go? There we go. And that's where you can go to see Ron's broadcast of it. It was either 2 or 3 days. So yeah, there we go. Tommy says, can we get an update of how the schools you helped get started? Get an update on how the schools you helped get started with their live streaming. Tommy, the truth of the matter is, I am such an excellent PC builder and such an awesome trainer that once I build a system and send it to them and they install it and I teach them how to use it, I don't ever hear from them again. They, part of that is, not part of it, the most of it is because of vMix. vMix is just that easy to learn. And once you learn the basics, it's just like, it's like riding a bicycle. You teach a little kid, once they get their balance, they're gone. And it's the same way. I had a school call a little while ago. We placed a PC there oh, maybe this past spring, maybe this past winter, and they're going to use it for their video board in the end zone for football. And, I sent it to them and said, contact me for training. I never heard anything, so I figured they figured it all out. Got a call from the principal earlier today, and he said, okay, we're ready for training now. I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's get some training. Let's get you going. And it was funny because he didn't tell me who he was. I mean, he told me the high school. He told me his name. He didn't tell me he was the principal. And I said something, you know me, I say crazy stuff. Jeez. Yeah, I probably said things I shouldn't have said. Things like, what are the, I said, oh, he said, how long is it going to take to learn vMix? And I said, well, it depends on how smart you are. I am such a smarty pants. And he said, well, the kids think I'm really, really dumb. He said, I'm the principal. And I said, oh, I got you. I said, okay, well, the older you get, the smarter they'll think you are. It's kind of like your parents, everybody thinks their parents are really dumb until they get into their 20s or whatever and start learning what the real world is like. And they're like, darn, my parents were pretty smart. Okay. So yeah, Ron did a big media days. How many days of live streaming was that, Ron? 2 or 3? I know there was one for Baldwin and at least one for Mobile. And they weren't just doing it for Ron. I think they were doing it for TV and maybe radio too. But Ron was smart enough to get in on it and to get the live stream going on it. And he does great kind of a game of the week kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, I see what's okay. I've got a confidence monitor up in front of me, but it's not right. It's just not right. What can I say? It's just not right. Okay, here we go. So Mobile County was 2 days. There are a lot of high schools in Mobile County. And then Baldwin County was a day. I did some stuff on local school that had kids doing the morning shows. Oh, yeah. Tommy, it's amazing all the schools that have kids doing the programs. In fact, a lot of times, I'll get inquiries from teachers and administrators about this. And when I'll tell them the story about the elementary school where all the kids are running, they're like, no way, no. We're a high school. We're a higher school. I was like, okay. Now, I was just out at the local elementary school last week doing some training. They've got some new teachers involved, so they were starting from scratch. And they were like, I don't know if we're going to be able to get all this. And I said, do you have some kids that were in the program last year? And she said, yeah. I said, they'll teach you. But we spent a couple hours together just to get things getting right. All right. Michael is asking, how do high schools in your area stream? A lot of them hooked up with an organization called the, what is it called? The NFHS, National Federation of High Schools, or something like that, which is a for-profit organization that contracts with the schools and gives them a streaming destination. And if they choose, they can buy gear from them as well. And our local high school, Fairhope High School in Fairhope, Alabama, uses the NFHS network, but they use gear, of course, that we built for them. And so it's pay-per-view at the NFHS level, but our particular school has decided they don't want to do that, so they have paid NFHS to release them from the pay-per-view so that they can just live stream their stuff to anybody that wants to watch it. And so I think they stream to NFHS, and I also think they stream to YouTube at the same time. And I think they get a bigger audience with YouTube because it's easier to find and you don't have to log in and all that kind of stuff. Profit from it is interesting. Some people have been able to profit from it. People like Ron and Jim Jacobs, who is up in Anniston, Alabama, kind of do a roadshow, a game of the week kind of thing, and they're able to get either the schools to pay them to come do it, or to get sponsors, or a combination of both, where the school might pay them, and then they might also get money from sponsors at the same time. So, yeah, it's a smorgasbord, and it's if it's done well, I think people are probably willing to pay for it. But if it's a single camera feed with no announcing or anything like that, yeah, I guess people will do the pay-per-view. There's this Pixelot camera system that has 3 or 4 cameras that cover the whole field, and then it's got some AI software that kind of senses where the movement is and then switches cameras and maybe zooms a little bit. And so it's sort of a hands-free kind of situation. And a lot of schools have that just so they can, say they've got something. They put the camera up and turn it on and don't do anything after that until it's time to turn it off. So it's not exactly a production like an ESPN production. Ron is doing more like an ESPN production, as is Jim Jacobs. Jim Jacobs has the oh golly, it's FNN. Let me look it up here. I think it's called the FNN. FNN Sports Network, maybe. Yeah, the Friday Night Network, FNN Network. Let's get a URL here. Yeah, there we go. Hello, Chris. Glad to have you. Yes, I agree. I agree. And I think Tommy's right. That's right. If you're going to have a production worth getting paid for, it's going to have to be a good one. It's going to have to really separate a big distance between the others. And that includes, like, Ron's got 2 or 3 guys, former players, maybe former coaches that are his commentators. And I know Jim does a great job with multi-camera production and instant replay. I mean, different people kind of have their different specialties, but the trick is to make people think that they're watching it on TV, with the same kind of score information and statistics and instant replay and all that other kind of stuff that makes it worthwhile. Yeah, we should have started our show. Hang on a second. Let's get this little rascal going. Don't forget that we're using the X-Keys XBE 96 keyboard for our show today. And yeah, we're ready to go. Well, hello. Goodness gracious. You just never know what each day will bring. So today we're going to talk about when you're building a PC for live streaming with vMix, what are some of the problems that you're going to encounter? And some of you may have already built PCs and you're like, it's working, it's 90%, but there's that other 10% I'd really like to clean up. Or some of you may be thinking about building one, and this may scare you off, but you can come back and refer to the video it'll be here the whole time. The idea is that it's a computer. It's a computer we assemble from components. It's basically a gaming computer, but there are lots of other little piece parts that have to be right. One of the piece parts, I've got another PC over here behind me. Let's see if I can give you a picture of it here. Yeah, there it is right there. This is a prototype I built for a company that wants to resell it. It's a pretty low-powered system. I say low power. It's based on an AMD chip. Don't know which one right off the cuff. I think it's a 4-core quad-core system. It'll be able to do 4 cameras. Generally, we set it up as HDMI because that's the most kind of common camera that people can procure. And it's nothing fancy right now, but it does allow us to have another computer that we can see, that we can look at some things on, so I don't have to do that on this computer. So these are some of the things that we have to do in order to get our computer ready. One of the first things to do is to do the Windows update. And yeah, that's, hang on a second, let me do something here real quick. I feel lost without being in the screen, you know? Let's see, let's do a layer, let's do a mix 2 right there. And let's just put me there, and then I can come down here. That's perfect. And then I'm just going to overlay myself right there. How about that? Oops, that didn't work, did it? I need to have a transparent background. Can I do that? One second here. I think I can do that. Yeah, there we go, transparent. I thought there was a way to do that. So there we go. That's what we wanted to do. Okay, so this is Windows Update. Actually, let's go back a little further. A lot of people have approached me in the last, several months about Windows 10 versus Windows 11. Some people, in fact, have called up, Tom, Microsoft is going to discontinue support for Windows 11 in October 2025. Well, yeah, that's like a year plus from now. Don't feel the same sense of urgency on that you do, but it is on my radar. I know that my personal opinion is that Windows 11 is not fully baked yet. They're still working on it. And if you look at the number of Windows 11 computers in the world versus the number of Windows 10 computers, Windows 11 is like, I don't know, 7%, 10% as compared to Windows 10. So I don't know that every possible bug has been found in it yet, and they're still finding some. And what was it, just 2 weeks ago, there was an issue with something. So I'm not convinced. I'm still using Windows 10 on my systems that I build, but I'm using a Windows 11 license. Yes, you can do that. You can install Windows 10 with a Windows 11 license, and that makes the upgrade to Windows 11 a piece of cake when you're ready to do it, because you've already got the license. All you have to do is update to Windows 11, and boom, there you are. Hey, Gunnar, glad you're here. Xavier, glad to have you. So I'm still a Windows 10 fan, and I will begin to migrate to Windows 11 probably after the first of the year. At some point, I'll put that on some of the systems around here. In fact, I have a client right now, a big school out well, I guess in the Midwest, that we're building a system for their sporting department, their sports department, sorry. We'll have a replay and all that kind of stuff. And they want me to use Windows 11 on it because that's what vMix recommended in their reference systems. So we'll use Windows 11 and do all the tricks that I know how to do to make sure that it's not a problem. So Windows 10, Windows 11, I'm a Windows 10 guy. I'll stay with Windows 10 at least until the first of the year. And then I'll begin to help folks kind of move over to Windows 11. If you are committed to Windows 10, you can pay for an extra year of updates. I think it's, I don't know, $250, something like that for an extra year. I mean, that's pretty pricey, but it's available. And then you can do it for another year after that for double that amount. So if Windows 10 is that important to you, you can still keep it. So let's talk about this stuff right here. This is Windows Update. This is Windows Update in Windows 10. I imagine Update in 11 works much the same way. When I build a new system, one of the first things I do after I've installed this operating system, the Windows 10 on it, is that I will get Windows 10 to do an update. And so it'll come up with a list of, 20 updates it needs, maybe, it all depends. And once it's done and I reboot the PC, I'm not done. Because when I go back to Windows updates, there's some more Windows updates that need to be made. Now I have to hit the check for updates button way up there at the top, and it'll check and it says, yeah, you need some more updates. And sometimes I'll have to do it a third time. I was working with somebody on some tech support. It was the Associated Press, the AP. And they called and their vMix wasn't working right. And I said, is your Windows up to date? Oh yeah, it keeps itself up to date. Oh no, it doesn't keep itself up to date. It does the essential stuff, but it doesn't do everything. Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Our IT people, our IT people wouldn't let. I said, okay, well let's just have some fun with it for a second. Take a minute with me and indulge me. Yeah, I mean, you called me. You need my help, so indulge me for a second. So we did the Windows Update thing. I said, okay, now reboot the PC, and let's go back to this screen. So he rebooted, came back to the screen. I said, okay, now check for updates again. He said, oh, there's some more updates. Yeah. I said, okay. So they did their thing, and we rebooted, came back. I said, let's check for updates. He said, okay. Oh, there's some more updates. We did this 21 times before there were no more updates. So if you are counting on your PC to keep itself up to date, don't count on it. Or if your system is used just for live streaming, just for broadcasting, and you turn it on for broadcasting and you turn it off when you're done, your Windows could be pretty drastically out of date. Windows won't update when vMix is running, by the way, unless you've told vMix, hey, it's okay to run updates while you're doing something, which is never a good idea. But Martin Sinclair, being the genius he is, figured out a way to prevent Windows from updating while vMix was running. So run back to your vMix right now run back to your PC right now without vMix running and do an update to see if you've got some updates waiting. And take them and take the optional update. Take every update you can take. Take the driver updates, even if it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why do I need just take it. Don't argue, just take it. You'll be happier in the long run. So get your updates. Yeah. In fact, let's go ahead and fire this one up real quickly and let's see what happens. Now, I probably shouldn't have done that, but that's okay. On the second Tuesday of every month, Microsoft releases a big bundle of updates. Now they'll throw out, security updates throughout the month. They'll throw out updates to Windows Defender and all these other kinds of things. But they don't give you the good stuff except once a month, called Patch Tuesday. And that is the one day you do not want to update. You remember, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago? Maybe it's been longer ago than that. There was an update that disabled virtually every webcam in the world. And it took a couple of days for people to figure out which update it was. And then finally, I was getting calls. vMix won't show my webcam. Well, I don't think that's a vMix problem. Finally figured out it was a Windows Update problem. Figured out which update it was, and then the buzz went around, uninstall this update and you'll get your webcams back. And, another week or 10 days later, Microsoft fixed it. But yeah, let's learn from that one and say, we're going to calendar for the 4th Tuesday to do our updates for the month. And we can pause the updates while we're waiting for that 4th Tuesday to come around. So we can pause those updates. You can pause them for 7 days at a time, I think 5 different times. So that'll give you a month and a week to be into the future. Get the latest updates as soon as they're available. No, we want to turn that off. Heck no, I don't want I want to be in control. I don't want Microsoft to tell me when they're going to do this stuff. We are the boss. Remember, we are the bosses. We are the bosses. AI is not going to take over our world. All right, so we've got that guy right there, and that's really important. And then there are these other things called drivers. And virtually everything in your computer has a driver associated with it. Let's see, can we move this guy over here? Yeah, let's do that. Get him out of the way for the moment. And all of these devices that we see on the screen here have some sort of driver associated with them. And let's take a look at some of them here just a little more closely. One of my favorites is the display adapter. And that's where I find my graphics card. In this case, it's the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070 Super. This is one that I just leave around here when I'm testing things. And we can look at its properties. I just right-clicked. And we can look at the driver. And we can see the driver date is June 23rd, 2023. Well, that's kind of old. And we really would like to update the driver. And we can click Update Driver here. But here's a clue. Microsoft doesn't have the latest, greatest driver for NVIDIA. It generally is, maybe 6 months in arrears. So we're going to take a second and we're just going to go to NVIDIA. Can you see that? Yeah, I think you can. Okay, so let's go to NVIDIA drivers. And we'll go to the official driver page. And we will find the GeForce, what was it, 2070 Super? 2070 Super, there we go. And we will take the Windows 10, in this case, game ready driver, that's fine. We'll say search for it, there it is. And this is the one dated August 6, 2024. It's version 560.81. And we'll see this one is version 536.40. Now, why Microsoft does these guys differently than NVIDIA, the creator of the driver, I don't know. But really, it's these last 5 digits that tell us. In this case, it was 536.40, and we're at 560. 560.81. So we're going to take that one. We're going to download it, and it'll do its thing. Oops, got to click download 2 different times for some unknown reason. All right, we'll let that download. We'll come back to that in a minute. Other things on here that, sound and video game controllers. So we've got a red flag. See that little yellow orange triangle right there? That says we've got a problem with the NVIDIA high definition audio. Well, we'll fix that with the driver in just a second. But you notice, and let's put that guy back the way he was. Anything that's popped out, especially anything that has a yellow triangle on it, is something with a problem. And so we want to fix that problem. In this case, let's just go in and see what the properties are. And it says a driver for this device has been disabled. An alternate driver may be provided this functionality. So we need to probably address that. We'll see this is the same date, June 8th, 2023, a different driver version because it's audio. And we can go into details in advance if we want to and see other things. But really, it's this driver page that's the most helpful. We'll cancel here. If you're putting in a capture card, and in just a second, No, we don't have any extra ports available on this guy. If we put in a capture card, it would show up under sound, video, and game controllers. That's what a capture card is. Why don't they put it under capture cards? You'll have to ask Windows. I don't know. But that's where we would find our capture card. And sometimes it'll come up with a PCI device unknown, which means that we have a driver that we have to install for that capture card. Now, if we have a Blackmagic capture card, and we'll use Blackmagic as an example, we'll go to Blackmagic Design, to their website, and we'll go to the Support tab, and we will look for Capture and Playback right here. And that will give us the latest downloads, desktop video 14.2, and we can download the Windows version. And it says, this is everything you need to set up your DeckLink, Ultra Studio, or Intensity for video capture and playback with your computer. Now, in most cases, that's a card that gets installed. That includes things like the DeckLink 8K Pro, which I've played with. Those are a lot of fun. The DeckLink Duo 2, the DeckLink Quad 2, the DeckLink Micro Recorder, the Mini Monitor. All these cards right here on this list are covered by this one desktop video 14.2 driver. So we would, if we wanted to, let's see, let's go back. Can we get out of this page? Oh yeah, there we go, X. So we would download this, the Windows x86 version, Mac version, Linux version, but we really want the Windows version. I'm not going to do it because I don't have anything on this one, but we can also see that they've got all the past versions of this. Used to be the Blackmagic had real trouble with their drivers, but they seem to have gotten some good driver writers, and their drivers have been pretty bulletproof ever since. Let's see how we're doing here. We're getting there. Another minute left, it says, but who really believes that? The other kinds of things that we might find problems with would be USB, Universal Serial Bus Controllers, and we may have something attached, like I don't know if you can see this little guy right here. No, you can't. This is just an unpowered USB hub. It allows me to put all the things that I want to on this PC, and then I can unplug it and plug it into another PC that I'm building. In this case, it's got a wireless mouse and keyboard. It's got 2 thumb drives with data that I need to put on here, like vMix and TeamViewer and all the other stuff that I use when I'm building up a PC. All the drivers and BIOS updates I keep on here so they're handy, and I can plug them right in, and I've got them every time. If you are working with a system that only has a limited number of USB ports, and so you say, okay, well, I'm going to expand those by using a hub, you could run into trouble by overloading that port, because in a PC, a USB port is controlled by a USB controller, but a USB controller might control 2 or sometimes even 3 ports. So if you're going to load it up with webcams or the USB capture cards, you probably don't want to use a hub for that. Some folks have had some luck using a powered hub, and you'll just have to play with that one. And other folks, I think we're building a system right now for Al Bunn that's got a 4-port USB capture card in it. Each of the ports is its own controller, and so you can drop a hub off each one of those. He just needed a lot of ports, so we were able to do that for him. Okay, let's see. We will come back to this probably at some point. So let's see where we are here. Are we downloaded here? I think we are. All right, well, let's take a second and let this guy update. And let me drag this up where you can see it right there. There we go. And so I'm just going to let that run while it saves these to the computer. But there's some things about this NVIDIA graphics card installation that you want to pay attention to. One of them is not as important as it used to be, and that is getting rid of the old driver if you're going to put a new driver on there. But there are some things that are definitely important. Okay. So we've got a couple choices here. We've got NVIDIA graphics driver and GeForce Experience. GeForce Experience is kind of like kryptonite to vMix. So we don't want it. GeForce Experience wants to go in and do a lot of things, and we don't need that kind of AI working against us. So we're going to take just the graphics driver. Agree and continue. Express installation? Don't think so. We're going to do a custom one. Thank you very much. We're going to install just what we want to install. And that is, first off, we're going to install the HD audio driver, but we're not going to install the physics system software, don't need it, or the USB-C driver, because, you know, our NVIDIA card doesn't have a USB-C on it, number one. And we're going to perform a clean installation, and that will remove every element of the previous NVIDIA driver on here. So next, and away it goes, and it's going to spin like that for a while. Let's see, can we move that up? Can you see it spinning? Yeah, there we go. So we'll come back to that guy in a bit. In the meantime, we've got our Windows Update that's ready for a restart. We can schedule it for later, or we can restart it now. We're not going to restart it now. We'll restart the system in a little bit when we get this driver installed. One of the other things, yeah, and that was just the driver cleaning out the old version. So we'll just pull these out of the way for a second and pull this one up where we can see it. Well, no, I guess we can't do that. Let's do that from here. Okay, this is the disk management on the PC. And so let's say that you have installed, well, we'll take Alan Bunt's system, which is sitting over here waiting to get put in the case. We've installed 3 M.2 SSDs in there, a 250 gigabyte for the operating system and files, a terabyte for scratch drive, and then a 2 terabyte for, I think, long-term storage. All of those really fast, and they all install into the M.2 slots that are built into the motherboard. The 250 gigabyte gets recognized, or I choose it when I'm installing Windows, so it gets recognized immediately as a live available drive. But the other 2 don't, until we tell Windows, hey, those drives are there. Yes, they're there, and you see them, but we need to do something with them first. So what we would do is, well, let's see. I don't think we have a drive on this machine that is not already recognized from Windows. You see the one at the bottom that says disk 0. In this case, and in Alan's case, this is the C drive, and it's a healthy drive. And you see the navy blue line above that. That tells us that the drive is active. If it had a black line above it, it would say, hey, I recognize this drive is here, but it's not doing anything because it's not formatted and it's not ready to go. And it would be a simple process, and obviously I can't go through that simple process. Yeah, there we go, in the bottom left-hand corner where it says unallocated and primary partition. The black line would be unallocated, which means it's not anything yet. So if you right-click it, you can go through a process of enabling and formatting that drive so it's ready to go. And with Al's, in fact, it always kind of sneaks up on me. It's like, why? What? I know I put those drives in there. Why isn't Windows showing them on Windows Explorer? Because you didn't enable them, you idiot. So you have to go through that process. And if you screw up and you accidentally, install Windows on the wrong drive, there are ways of fixing that. There are ways of fixing that. You can move it around, but it's not as easy as just copying files. Let's go back to the other system and see where we are with that. I think we're finished on that one. So let me refresh. Yeah, let me refresh this one right here. Can we refresh that? Well, we may have to just redo it again. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. It still doesn't look right. Let's go here and see what we've got. Yeah, that window disappeared. That's why we don't have it anymore. Okay, what else can we show over here? Let's go with Device Manager again. There we go. And let's refresh that one. Ah, doesn't want to show it. We'll come back to it in just a second. So, what one of the problems too that can happen when you've got it all starts with the motherboard, and so we've got a motherboard by a manufacturer like Gigabyte or Asus or MSI or some of the others. And I'm pretty partial to the Asus motherboards. Haven't had any problems with them over the years. vMix tends to prefer the Gigabyte ones, but I think it's just based on the experience that you've had and your familiarity with it. One of the things that you want to be able to do is to make sure that the software that controls the motherboard is up to date. And that software is called the BIOS, B-I-O-S, typically all caps. I think it's like Basic Input Output System or something like that. And so the BIOS is kind of like firmware, kind of like software. It depends. I guess it's hardware that we're updating, so it's firmware. And the different motherboards have different ways of updating the BIOS. The Asus is pretty easy. I keep all my BIOS updates on that thumb drive I showed you just a minute ago, the 2 thumb drives there. So if I get a motherboard that needs to have a BIOS update, and I've worked with that motherboard before, I know I've got the BIOS on there. And if it's something that I've worked with recently, I feel pretty confident that the BIOS is up to date. They typically don't update BIOSes very often, but sometimes they do. We'll talk about that in just a second. And so a BIOS update will do things like add features, maybe fix bugs, enable things that weren't enabled before, like, oh golly, what was it? That resizable bar for the graphics card. There were some motherboards that could use resizable bar, but you had to turn it on in the BIOS. Seems kind of silly, but yeah. And so if a motherboard had the capability of it and you could update the BIOS to be able to turn it on, then that was a big feature. And in vMix, that's a pretty significant feature, I think. Most people don't understand it. We're not going to talk about it now. And sometimes there are situations like with the Intel i7 1370 series and 13700 series and 14700 series from Intel that had a power problem, and they would blue screen under heavy loads of some certain types. Now, that hasn't been traditionally a problem that vMix folks have found, but it is something that Intel has released a fix for, and they released it to all the motherboard manufacturers like Asus and Gigabyte. And so Asus and Gigabyte would release a BIOS update. And the not this PC, I don't think, because this has got an older chip in it, but the PC that I'm building for Alan had that potential. So we got the BIOS update that was made like 2 days ago, and went ahead and installed it on his motherboard so that he wouldn't have that problem. And I think we can show you a little bit about what the BIOS looks like. Let's get this camera and reposition it so that we can see the screen, because you can't, we're not going to be able to see the BIOS. We're not going to be able to run vMix desktop capture if we've got just the BIOS running. Oops, a little too far. That'll go right there. And let's go ahead and sharpen this one. And I guess we could straighten it too, couldn't we? There we go. The camera's just looking crooked at the system, but that ought to do it. All right, so let's step over to that one for a second. And essentially what we're going to do is just reboot the PC. We'll get rid of these changes here. And I've got an opportunity here to update and restart. No, I just want to restart. So we're going to click restart. And then as it's restarting, I've got my finger on the delete key, because that's what's going to allow me, as it restarts, to get into the BIOS. Yeah, so I'm just going to tap the delete key at this point, and it'll give me a chance to get in the BIOS before it goes into the Windows operating system. There we go. So this is the Gigabyte BIOS, for example. And it's going to have different menu systems. If I wanted to adjust the voltage on the CPU, things like that. In this case, I can check when my BIOS, in this case, it's F1, so that's from August of 2023, almost exactly a year ago. It is exactly a year ago. So this one probably needs to be updated. And then I've got some boot options. I've got some peripherals. Most of it I don't use. We got the chipsets, got power, and then this particular one, I'd have to read it. This is a Gigabyte. I don't use the Gigabyte very often, so I'm not sure how I would update the BIOS on this one. It's probably QFlash right here. Yeah. Well, whatever it is, that's not it. So we would go through that process. We'll exit without saving. There we go. And updating the BIOS can be a little tricky, because it can go black and then appear that it's not going to ever come back. And so you have to give it time to do its thing. I would say when I updated the BIOS on Alan's, it probably took maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And some of that time was a black screen. And there's always a temptation to get a little panicked whenever you see a black screen. because that might mean that that there's an issue, that something's not working, and so the temptation is to go and restart it, and that's exactly what you don't want to do. Go ahead and give it plenty of time. I mean, I would say there has been one case where I left a machine on overnight here at the studio to get it to where the BIOS would finally finish updating. But after that, it was fine. Yeah, no problem. So there we go. All right, let's see. What else can we show you here? So we've got, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. Oh yeah, let's talk about RAM. RAM is a little tricky. And again, these are Intel machines that primarily I'm building. So I'm using RAM that will work on Intel. Now, not all RAMs work with everything. AMD RAMs don't work with Intel, and Intel RAMs don't work with AMD. They're different, what's the best way to say it? They're different chip styles or protocols that are not interchangeable. Like previously we used DDR4 RAM when we did the Z590 motherboards. And now that we've migrated up through the 690s to the 790s, it uses DDR5. What was it? DDR3 before? No, DDR4 before and DDR5 now. That's right. And with ASUS, not all DDR5s are compatible with all of the different motherboards. And I remember not knowing that at first, building a system, and it's like it's not booting. There must be a problem with the motherboard. And called ASUS for help, and they said, is your RAM on the compatibility list? The what? There's a compatibility list? Wish I'd known that when I was dating. That would make things so much easier. But it wasn't. My RAM wasn't on the compatibility list. So I had to get different RAM, send that RAM back. And found out too that different motherboards and this is where the ASUS part got a little tricky, different motherboards had different compatibilities. And I think this was a problem within ASUS that they solved it by by just saying, okay, well, this RAM doesn't work with our motherboard. When really it was probably an issue with the motherboard, not with the RAM, because the RAM was obviously working on other things. And so we've found out here which RAM will work with all the different ASUS motherboards we use, and that's the RAM that we use for all of them. There was one system that worked with incompatible RAM for about a week or 10 days, and we didn't know it, so we shipped it, and then got a call back from the customer, after they'd used it for the third or fourth time, saying, hey, it's not working. And that's when we became aware of that. Well, we had already become aware of that problem and thought, okay, maybe this is what it is. And so they shipped it back to us, and we replaced the RAM, booted right up, no problems. And we sent it back to them and haven't heard anything from it. The systems that we build come with 3-year parts and labor warranty, which some of the components have a longer warranty than our 3 years, but our 3 years basically means, hey, we're going to be responsible for it. If there's a warranty claim to be filed, we'll file it, but we're not going to make you wait for it. We're just going to replace it and send it back to you. In some cases, we had, what was it, during the like 2020 and 2021, and maybe 2022, wonder what was going on in the world then. There was a bad run of graphics cards. Mostly it seemed to be from MSI. And so we were having those little rascals burn out, kind of right and left. I've probably returned 12 or more of those for repair. Once we return them for repair, we can't put them in a new system. So we just sell them on eBay as factory refurbished. But yeah, so we have stopped using the MSI, pretty much stopped using MSI anything, just because we've had that bad experience with it. And that is the value of having done this more than a time or two, is to know, what components you want to you want to work with and which components you specifically don't want to work with, or what brands, for example. And that's what we try to bring to the table, is that experience. If you're building one for the first time, you're not going to know. And so, you know, you do your best due diligence as you can. Don't shop by price. Don't think that, oh, well, these cheaper these cheaper anythings, these cheaper graphics cards, these cheaper SSDs, these cheaper RAMs, these whatever they may be. Don't let that fool you. You get what you pay for. And I've seen, normally even the graphics cards would have brand names on them, but the last year or so, there've been a bunch of generic or no-named or crazy named graphics cards that have sort of popped out on the market that may be refurbs being rebranded as something else. So stick to brand names when you can. Stick to brand names, period, whether you can or can't. I think you'll have more out of your system in the long run. And that's what we do. We use all the brand names that we can, because we know they're going to last a long time and that they'll live at least through the warranty period. And you know, some of the systems that we built back in 16 and 17, you know, occasionally we'll hear from folks, and those are just cooking along. You know, we'll go in and maybe help them out and do a tune-up on it. Oh, that was one other thing I wanted to show you. That's part of our installation process. And I think I can do it on this system right here. So let's see. Let me get a screen capture going here. And we'll take just a second. Desktop capture, display 2. Is that the one we want? Yeah, we'll do it over there. All right, so I'm going to give you this. Oops, I'm not going to give you that one. I'm going to give you this one. And we are going to do settings over there. And let's just maximize that for a second. And we're going to go into System. And we're going to go into Power and Sleep. And one of the important things here is to make sure that the system never turns off, that the screen never turns off, and that the system never turns off. So set those to never. And then over here under Additional Power Settings, it's going to pop up and it's going to look, I think, well, it's not going to look like this, but it's high performance that we want. And so we actually have to click Show Additional Plans. Yeah, it's power saver that we don't want, and balance we don't want. We want high performance for sure. So we want to make sure that we're set there with that one. And then the other kind of setting up thing is with the NVIDIA control panel software. We'll bring that in, and we'll go to Manage 3D Settings, and then scroll through here and make sure that our NVIDIA is set for Prefer Maximum Performance. The default is normal, or sometimes may say optimal or something like that, but really what we want is Prefer Maximum Performance. And that will mean that vMix will work with the NVIDIA card at its max. Let's bring up vMix settings here for just a second. Yeah, we'll bring those out here, and we'll go to the Performance tab, and we'll see that we've got our NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070 Ti there. We're not doing high input performance mode because we are doing resizable bar. And so vMix ought to have a note right there to go along with that. High input performance bar, unless you're using resizable bar, then don't do that. So we're not using low latency capture. We are showing thumbnails, and we have disabled the Windows Update. The other thing that we'll do for our clients, especially if they're new clients, we'll go into the audio section and untick automatically mix audio, because that can be real confusing for folks. And we'll also come through and make sure that the master output and the headphones output don't say Windows default. They're just assigned to none, because Windows default, that changes all the time. You can't count on Windows, that type of stuff. Let's see, what other kind of options would we say there? Here we would want, yeah, we're good there. We're good there. If we're setting it up with an output card, we would go ahead and choose an external renderer and go ahead and set all that up so that it was set to go for our client. Yeah, that would be about it. Would be about it on that one. Yeah, so now you know all my secrets. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of them. So we'll go to a post show now. Hang around a second. We'll be right back. Okay. So yeah, Ron, sorry about that. Didn't see your note till just now. But yeah, this little picture right here covers up that door. And I meant to turn the light off. What Ron's talking about is this one right here. Whoops. Can't do that. Can't do that. Can't go back to that shot. We're already there. Can't go by. All right, Xavier just built another one in the last 2 weeks. Good deal. How's it working? This for yourself or for a friend or for a client? Welcome, Gunner. So glad you're there. Xavier says, I go into power settings, even under high performance, make sure USB doesn't selectively suspend. Absolutely. Yep. And USB inputs, I tend to steer away from them as much as I can. Unless somebody just needs to have an occasional capture card that they can plug into USB. I guess the only other thing that I would do regularly with USB, of course, would be mouse and keyboard, which I like the wireless ones, and a mixer or an audio interface. John has a computer that tells him my PC doesn't currently meet the system minimum requirements to run Windows 11. Congratulations. Whoever built that PC for you is spot on. No, what that means is that the motherboard doesn't have a, what is it? It's like a TPM or a TRM or something like that, little chip on it that does something that Microsoft wants to be able to do. Some sort of, anti-hacking thing or something, but you're not going to hack your own computer. And so you can't run Windows 11 as a result. Yeah, I think the one I've got here, let's see. Can I do, yeah, I guess I can do Windows 11. TPM 2.2, thank you, yes. That is it indeed. Thank you, Xavier. He built one for work. There you go. Yeah, USB, I feel the same way about USB that I do about HDMI. It is a friction connection. It is not a locking connection. That's what I like about SDI and DisplayPort. Yeah, they're locking. So there you go. But John, I wouldn't worry about that. You can run on Windows 10. I mean, there are people that are still running Windows ME or Windows 7, even though Microsoft discontinued support for it years ago. But if that gives you discomfort, let's see. Xavier says that motherboard manufacturers have some BIOS updates that will allow TPM 2.0 and fix that. He had to do it on his X299 systems. Oh, the X299s. Yes, yes. X299s are lovely. They are so antique, but they are so powerful. I thought about building one here for myself, but I talked myself out of it. Although I still have some X299 motherboards on the shelf from when we were building a lot of them. And they're getting harder and harder to find, so we'll probably hold them back unless we need to build one for somebody or somebody makes us an offer we can't refuse. Yeah, it's fun to do this kind of stuff. All right, Tom, any echo in the room you are in now? Well, I don't know. What do you think? Ron, you need to come by and see the studio. You just do. Ron is building a studio in his home. He's got permission for the boss to take over one of the bedrooms, which is my home studio as a bedroom. I got thrown out of it when I started taking over other bedrooms. But yeah, you know, Ron, I've got curtains here and there, and behind some of these curtains are moving blankets. I've got movable partitions made out of shutters. You know, they're three-way. How do you do a three-way? Something like that, maybe. So they move in and out. Anyway, I've got those stationed around. Some of them have moving blankets draped over them. I've got lots of things on the wall and things here in the studio that kind of redivert the sound and get it, you know, kind of where it's bouncing around, but not just a solid reverberation. A lot of times folks will have a situation where they are putting they've got a home studio. They put their camera and they have a wall in front of them with the camera in front of that, and then them in front of the camera and a microphone. So they're getting a lot of bounce back at that point. And that's the point where you want to put something that's going to either divert some of that, those little foam finger things, or some moving blankets, or, you know, even a bookshelf with lots of different things on it, including cardboard boxes. Those are really good. Yep. Yeah, you do. You do need the extra lanes. Yep. And you know, I've been tempted to look into building a system built based on the Xeon processor, because the lane limitation is not as great, or an AMD processor, which has, I think it was some of the higher end ones have, you know, 128 lanes available. So that's just immense. Immense, they would say, immense. Yeah. All right, let's see what we got going here. Well, if it's my build, then of course it's doing great. But no, that's the one that John said doesn't currently meet system requirements. Yeah, I'll take a look, John, and see if there's a BIOS update for that motherboard that will fix that. And we've got over a year to play with that and get it done. And again, if it doesn't meet Windows 11 requirements and you stay with Windows 10 and you just don't have updates, you kind of get frozen in time. And that's funny, that for those of you that know about TriCasters, the TriCasters are Windows machines. And they're Windows machines where Windows is just locked down and never updates. And that way that the TriCaster hardware, which is specific to the TriCaster, of course, you know, it's capture cards and video cards and those kinds of things, but it's very, very specialized gear that they're building themselves and putting in the system. So they know that it never changes. It never changes. But there are people that have hacked it and, you know, updated Windows and put vMix on there, or other kinds of things on there. It's kind of fun. I thought it might be fun at some point to get an old TriCaster and hack into it and put vMix on it and see what it did. But there's a lot of cool stuff that TriCaster does that vMix doesn't do yet. All right, folks. Well, it's a treat to be with you today. I'm going to close off the show. And if I can help you, reach out to me and let me know. And yeah, yeah. What was that? People were building PCs and then putting Windows on them. And they were taking the advantage of some of the PC hardware, but also taking advantage of the Windows software. It's been a long time since I've seen anyone do that. So there we go. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys. Yeah. Can't shift to Mac, Michael. vMix doesn't run well on a Mac. I mean, it'll run under Parallels or whatever those other emulation softwares are, but you know, it's too easy to play with the hardware here and tweak it and get what I want. Hackintosh, that was it. That's right. That's exactly what it was. It was a Hackintosh. Yep. All right, my friends. Have good weeks, have good weekends, have good life. Give somebody a hug, especially somebody that needs it. And we'll catch you next time.